Yeah, it's good to be with you, Mark. We just pulled into Beaumont, Texas. It's our last stop before tomorrow, and I will tell you first and foremost, he's doing better than Joe Biden going away for the weekend to Delaware. And leaders lead from the front, and I think that's what you see with President Zelensky. And how interesting it was that 3 years or so ago, this guy was a comedian, and now he's leading his people against an onslaught from Vladimir Putin. And so what you do is you break these folks down into what we call hunter-killer teams. You break them down to, 5 to 10 person squads, and you have decentralized operations so that the Russians don't know from whence they're being attacked, and they really can't form any type of firm resistance against what you're doing because they don't know when you're going to hit them and from where you're going to come from. It's kind of like the old French resistance that stood up to Nazi Germany back during World War II.
It seems like that's sort of what they're doing, no? A combination of that?
Yeah, absolutely right. And I would think that Vladimir Putin would be a student of history, and he would remember how the Germans got trapped in Stalingrad, and that's the exact same thing they did there. They broke down into small hunter-killer teams, sniper teams, small squads that decentralized operations. Because when you start to get into urban warfare, you're going to get bled to death, especially if you're in heavy mechanized units. And nobody knows that city better than the people that live there.
And he's got his military. A gentleman came up to me at CPAC over the weekend, Alan, and he said to me, and this guy knew his stuff, he said, most of the media don't understand how the Russians fight, and they do it every time.
Yeah.
They basically have three tiers. They send in the first, which is decent. They send in the second, which is so-so. They send in the third, which is their elite, to really put in the stinger, into the neck. And he said, and then so when the media say only about 2/3 of the army that he has there is committed, it's because he holds back the last third until he's ready to really count them out. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, there's that's called reinforcing success, and you don't want to put your creme de la creme troops in an initial onslaught. But the problem is that his initial onslaught is not meeting their objectives, and so that's pushed his third tier or third wave back behind schedule. And the other thing that you have to look at is what they are seeking to do. The Russians, they're on a set timetable. One of the advantages that our military had over the Russian military was that we were very decentralized. I mean, you could have a good, strong corporal or squad leader that could go out there and lead, but the Russian military is still very centralized. And again, it's much the same as what we saw with Adolf Hitler trying to control things, from his parapet. And I'm sure that Vladimir Putin is trying to control things. And I saw that picture of his two generals sitting, I don't know, about 10 or 12 feet away from him. They didn't look very happy, and he doesn't look very happy. So that's the advantage that Zelensky and the Ukrainian people have, is that they can operate decentralized, and the Russians are not going to be able to do that.
How is the European Union and Germany and other countries, how are they going to get them weapons if the Russians have such a big presence? I guess they can still come in from the West, right? From the
Yeah.
NATO countries.
Yeah, they can still come in from the West. I would presume the Russians don't have air superiority, but I would not risk having cargo planes come in. I would still try to do all of the shipments on the ground. And when you have Poland that is there, that's an easy way that you can get those assets and those resources into the people in Ukraine.
Now that's interesting what you just said. They don't have air superiority. Shouldn't they have air superiority by now?
You would think they would have the air superiority, but I was reading some reports. There's this Ukrainian pilot that I think has notched 6 or 7 shoot downs of Russian aircraft. So that kind of lets you know that maybe there aren't this strong, venerable force that we thought, that their training is not as high as it is. And the other thing you have to start thinking about is how do they get bled out as far as their oil and gas resources, because tanks require a lot of fuel. And we saw in one clip where there was a Russian tank that was just broke down on the road because he was out of gas. And the other thing is supply and parts and things of that nature. So the further they go into Ukraine, the more they extend their supply and logistical support lines, which is something, again, that's very easy to cut off if you have decentralized operations. Kind of like Francis Marion during the Revolutionary War and how he was attacking Cornwallis down, preventing him from linking up in Virginia.
You would be a spectacular governor. When we come back, I want to talk about that. Alan, what
Sure. West, the number 4Texas.com. West4Texas.com.
West4Texas.com. West, the letter, the number 4, Texas.com. I've endorsed it in the Republican primary, which takes place tomorrow. We'll be right back after the break.